There are moments that split your life cleanly into before and after. Mine happened on a Tuesday afternoon when I came home early from a business trip that was supposed to last until Friday. I remember the stillness of our house as I wheeled my suitcase through the front door, thinking I'd surprise Jackson with takeout from his favorite Thai place. The music hit me first, low, pulsing beats that vibrated through the floorboards. Not Jackson's usual playlist. This was something deliberately seductive, something chosen. I set the food down quietly, some instinct making me move like a ghost through my own home. Our bedroom door was cracked open just enough for a sliver of light to escape, and through that crack, I saw her, Tara, my best friend since college, the woman who had been my maid of honor, the godmother to our daughter, dancing, naked, for my husband. I didn't scream. I didn't burst in. Instead, I felt something crystallize inside me, a perfect, diamond-hard clarity I'd never experienced before. Time seemed to slow as I watched her twirl, her red hair fanning out like flames, her eyes locked on Jackson, who sat on our bed, with a drink in his hand and that stupid half-smile I used to love. "Take it all in?" I whispered to myself. "Remember every detail." I snapped 3 quick photos with my phone, careful to capture both their faces clearly, then backed away silently. Outside, I sat in my car for 2 hours, hands shaking on the steering wheel, waiting for her to leave. When she finally emerged, looking rumpled but satisfied, she even waved to our elderly neighbor like she belonged there. Tara and I had been inseparable for 15 years. We'd survived college finals, horrible bosses, her divorce, my pregnancy. She'd held my hair back when morning sickness hit me hardest. I'd talked her through panic attacks when her own marriage fell apart 3 years ago. "You're the sister I never had," she used to say. The betrayal burned not just because of Jackson. Marriages end, people fall out of love, I'm not naive, but because she'd looked me in the eye every day for how long? Months? Years? How long had they been laughing at me behind my back? I scrolled through my phone, looking at pictures of us together. Tara and me on vacation in Maui last summer, our arms slung around each other's shoulders. Tara holding my daughter Sophie at her 5th birthday party 2 months ago, both of them making silly faces. Tara helping me pick out the blue cashmere sweater I'd given Jackson for Christmas, the same sweater he'd been wearing today while she danced for him. That night, Jackson came home to find me cooking dinner as if nothing had happened. I kissed his cheek, asked about his day. He mentioned a busy afternoon at the office, with such ease that something inside me turned to ice. 15 years of marriage, and I'd never noticed how effortlessly he could lie. "Honey," I said, stirring the pasta sauce, "remember how we've been wanting to host a dinner party? I'm thinking this Saturday." "Sure," he said, barely looking up from his phone. "Who were you thinking of inviting?" I smiled, a real smile, because for the first time in hours, I felt a spark of something other than pain. "Oh, just a few special people. Tara, of course. And I thought it might be nice to finally meet her parents. They're in town for that medical conference, right?" His hand froze halfway to his wine glass. "Her parents? You want to invite the Callaways?" "Why not? Tara's practically family." I held his gaze until he looked away first. "I'll call them tomorrow. I have something very special planned." That night, I lay awake beside him, listening to his breathing and planning my next moves with a coldness that should have frightened me. But fear was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. Not when our daughter's stability hung in the balance. Not when I had been made a fool in my own home. "You have no idea what's coming," I whispered to his sleeping form. "Neither of you do." The signs had been there all along, like pieces of a puzzle I'd refused to assemble. Tara's sudden interest in fitness last year, joining the same gym as Jackson. Her convenient appearances at his company events when I couldn't attend due to work or Sophie's school commitments. The way she'd drop by unannounced, always perfectly made up, always on days when she knew I'd be out. "She's just lonely since her divorce," I told myself. "She needs family around her." The morning after my discovery, I dropped Sophie off at school and drove to our local cafe. I ordered my usual latte and sat in the corner booth, opening my laptop with trembling hands. I had one mission: to understand the scope of their betrayal. Their digital footprints told a story that made me physically ill. 6 months of text messages recovered from our shared cloud account, photos they'd sent each other, hotel reservations made on our joint credit card that Jackson had explained away as client meetings. But what hurt most were the messages where they discussed me, my predictable schedule, my trusting nature. "She'll never suspect," Jackson had written. "Sarah always sees the best in people. It's her greatest weakness." Tara had responded with a heart emoji, and "That's why we love her. And why this is too easy." They loved me, while betraying me in the worst possible way. I closed my laptop and walked to the bathroom, locking myself in a stall where I finally allowed myself to cry. Silent, body-racking sobs that left me gasping for air. 10 minutes of pure grief before I washed my face, reapplied my makeup, and walked out with my head high. That afternoon, I called Tara's mother, Eleanor Calloway, a formidable woman I'd met only twice before at larger gatherings. "Sarah, what a lovely surprise," she answered, her voice carrying that distinctive Texas drawl that Tara had worked so hard to eliminate from her own speech. "Eleanor, I'm hosting a special dinner this Saturday. Nothing formal, just a small gathering to celebrate some recent discoveries." My voice didn't waver. "I'd love for you and Richard to join us." "How thoughtful. We're only in town until Sunday for Richard's conference. What perfect timing." "Yes," I said. "Perfect timing indeed." Next came the hardest part. I called my mother and asked if Sophie could stay with her for the weekend. "Everything okay, honey?" Mom asked, instantly picking up on something in my voice. "It will be," I promised. "I just need to handle something at home." That evening, Tara called me, her voice higher than usual. "So, Jackson mentioned you're planning a dinner party?" "Yes. I'm so glad he told you. I was going to call you next." "And you invited my parents?" The edge of panic in her voice was unmistakable. "Of course. They're in town so rarely. And they should get to know Jackson better, don't you think? After all, you three spend so much time together." A beat of silence. "Sarah, is everything okay? You sound different." I laughed, a sound so natural it surprised even me. "Never better. I've just had some revelations lately about what's important, about who's important." After we hung up, I received a flurry of texts from Jackson, suddenly concerned about overwhelming our guests, and suggesting maybe we should keep it simpler, just us and Tara. I smiled at my phone. "Don't worry," I texted back. "I've got everything under control." The next day, I visited my attorney under the pretense of updating our wills. Instead, I laid out what I knew and what I needed: financial protection, custody arrangements, and documentation of the affair. She listened without judgment, taking notes in her precise handwriting. "The element of surprise is your advantage right now," she advised. "They think you're clueless. Let them keep thinking that until we have everything in place." I nodded, feeling the weight of my wedding ring like a stone on my finger. "How soon can we be ready?" "Give me until Monday to prepare the preliminary paperwork. In the meantime, gather any evidence you haven't already secured." I left her office feeling both hollow and determined. 15 years of marriage, 15 years of friendship, all poisoned by their selfishness. That night, Jackson tried to initiate intimacy for the first time in months. I allowed his kiss, fighting the urge to recoil, before claiming a headache. As he turned away, frustrated, I caught a glimpse of his phone lighting up on the nightstand. Tara's name flashed briefly before he hurriedly silenced it. "Important work thing?" I asked innocently. "Just spam," he muttered. I turned away so he wouldn't see my expression. "I gave my caterer the final headcount today. Everyone's coming on Saturday." He said nothing, but I could feel the tension radiating from his body like heat. "It's going to be a night to remember," I promised to the darkness. By Thursday, I had a complete picture of their affair, and something else I hadn't expected to find. Financial records showing Jackson had been siphoning money from our joint accounts into a separate one for over a year. Nearly $200,000 gone, hidden under business expenses and fabricated investments. "He's been planning to leave you," my attorney confirmed when I showed her the records. These withdrawals follow a pattern consistent with someone creating an exit strategy. The double betrayal should have crushed me, but instead, it hardened my resolve. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. This was about my daughter's future, my financial security, and justice. I spent Friday preparing for the dinner party with methodical precision. I hired a catering service from the next town over, people who didn't know us, who wouldn't gossip about what they were about to witness. I selected wines that complemented each course, including Eleanor Calloway's favorite Cabernet Sauvignon. Information gleaned from Tara's social media, where she'd posted about her mother's wine preferences. I arranged the dining room so that Jackson and Tara would sit opposite each other with her parents flanking them. I wanted Eleanor and Richard to have perfect views of their faces. While setting the table with our finest china, wedding gifts ironically, I received another anxious call from Jackson. "Are you sure about tomorrow night? We could always reschedule." "Absolutely not," I replied, my voice firm but pleasant. "Everything's arranged. The Callaways are looking forward to it. Maybe we should invite more people then? Make it less intimate?" I laughed. "Darling, since when are you shy about intimate gatherings? Besides, I want us to have quality time with Tara and her parents. They should know how close we've all become." His silence spoke volumes. That afternoon, I visited the storage unit I'd rented under my maiden name and placed inside a suitcase containing copies of all my evidence, emergency cash, and essential documents. No matter what happened tomorrow, I would be prepared. I also made one crucial stop at an electronics store where I purchased 3 small high-definition cameras. By nightfall, they were discreetly installed in our dining room, living room, and foyer, capturing every angle of what would unfold. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. I woke early, before Jackson, and went for a run, something I rarely did. The physical exertion helped clear my mind and strengthen my resolve. By the time I returned, he was in the kitchen, making coffee with shaky hands. "Nervous about something?" I asked, wiping sweat from my forehead. "Just a lot to do today," he muttered. "Don't worry about the dinner party. I've handled everything." His eyes met mine, searching for some clue about what I knew. I gave him nothing but a smile. Throughout the day, Jackson made 3 separate phone calls from our backyard, speaking in hushed tones. I didn't need to eavesdrop to know he was talking to Tara, strategizing how to get through the evening without revealing their secret. At 5:00 p.m., I took a long shower, then dressed carefully in a fitted black dress I knew Jackson had always admired. I applied my makeup with precision, taking extra care with my eyes, making them dramatic and intense. I wanted everyone at that table to see exactly what I was feeling through them. I fastened around my neck the pearl necklace Jackson had given me on our 10th anniversary. "A classic for my classic beauty," he'd said then. The memory no longer hurt. It had transformed into fuel. As I put the finishing touches on the dining room, fresh flowers, candles, name cards placed with deliberate care, I received a text from Tara. "Can we talk before tonight?" "Of course," I replied. "Come early. 6:30? Jackson will be picking up Eleanor and Richard at their hotel." "Perfect," she responded. I smiled at my phone. She had no idea how perfect it really was. At 6:25, I checked the cameras one last time from the app on my phone, all working flawlessly. I poured myself a glass of wine and took a single sip for courage. The doorbell rang at precisely 6:30. I opened it to find Tara standing there in a green dress that complemented her red hair, a forced smile on her face, and a bottle of champagne in her hand. "Sarah," she said, her voice strained with artificial cheer. "We need to talk." I stepped aside to let her in, feeling strangely calm. "Yes, we certainly do." "You've been acting strange all week," Tara said as soon as I closed the door. She set the champagne bottle on the console table and turned to face me, arms crossed defensively. "What's going on?" I gestured toward the living room. "Let's sit down, shall we?" She hesitated, then followed me. I took the armchair, leaving her the sofa, positioned perfectly in frame of the hidden camera. "I've been doing some thinking lately," I began, my voice steady. "About loyalty, about friendship, about what we owe the people we claim to love." Her posture stiffened. "That sounds philosophical." "It's actually very practical." I reached for the remote control on the side table and pressed a button. The large television on the wall flickered to life, displaying a paused image, the first frame of the video I'd captured days earlier. Tara's face drained of color. "What is that?" "I think you know exactly what it is." I pressed play. The footage was brief, but unmistakable. Tara dancing nude for my husband in our bedroom. I'd edited it carefully, removing anything too explicit but leaving no doubt about what was happening and who was involved. She jumped to her feet. "Turn it off. Sarah, this isn't what it looks like." I finished for her, pausing the video on a particularly damning frame. "Please don't insult my intelligence on top of everything else." Tears filled her eyes. Whether from shame or fear, I couldn't tell. "I never meant to hurt you." "That's funny, because from where I'm sitting, hurting me seems to be exactly what you and Jackson planned to do." I kept my voice even, controlled. $200,000, Tara. That's how much he's been stockpiling for your new life together." Her eyes widened in genuine surprise. "What? Interesting." He hadn't told her about the money. I filed that information away. "How long?" I asked simply. She sank back onto the sofa, defeated. 8 months. 8 months. While she helped plan Sophie's birthday party. While she hugged me through my promotion celebration. While she sat at our Thanksgiving table. "You know what hurts the most?" I said, my composure finally cracking. "That you could look me in the eye day after day and pretend to be my friend." "I am your friend," she protested weakly. "No." The word hung between us, final and irrevocable. "You're not. You never really were." The sound of a car pulling into the driveway made her head snap up in panic. "They're here." "Sarah, please." "Please what? Keep your secret? Protect your reputation? Why would I do that?" "Because of our history," she pleaded. "Because of Sophie. Think about how this will affect everyone." I have thought about it. For days. And I've decided that the truth matters more than your comfort or Jackson's pride. The front door opened, and Jackson's voice called out cheerfully, "We're here, Sarah?" "In the living room," I replied, not taking my eyes off Tara. Jackson entered first, followed by Eleanor and Richard Calloway. Eleanor was exactly as I remembered. Tall, elegant, with the same auburn hair as her daughter, though streaked with silver. Richard was shorter, distinguished-looking, with intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Sarah, wonderful to see you again," Eleanor said, stepping forward to kiss my cheek before noticing the tension in the room. "Tara, darling, you're here early." "Mom," Tara whispered, her face ashen. "Dad." "What's going on?" Jackson asked, his false cheer evaporating as he caught sight of the frozen image on the television screen. I stood, smoothing my dress. "I was just about to explain that. Eleanor, Richard, thank you so much for coming tonight. I invited you because there's something you should know about your daughter and my husband." "Sarah, don't do this," Jackson warned. I ignored him completely. For the past 8 months, they've been having an affair. In our home, in our bed. While pretending to my face that everything was normal, Eleanor gasped, her hand flying to her throat where she wore a pearl necklace remarkably similar to mine. "That's not all," I continued. "Jackson has been secretly moving money from our family accounts, money meant for our daughter's education, our retirement, into a private account, planning his exit, planning their future." "That's not true," Tara exclaimed, looking at Jackson with new uncertainty. "Tell them that's not true." His silence condemned him. Richard Calloway, who had remained silent until now, turned to his daughter with an expression of profound disappointment. "Is this true, Katerina?" She flinched at the use of her full name. "Dad, it's complicated." "It's really not," I interrupted. "Betrayal is actually quite simple." Eleanor turned to me, her Texas accent thickening with emotion. "Sarah, I can't begin to express our shame. Richard and I raised our daughter better than this." "Apparently not," I said quietly. Jackson finally found his voice. "This is a private matter. It doesn't concern anyone but Sarah and me." Richard Calloway stepped forward, his presence suddenly intimidating despite his modest height. "When you involved my daughter in breaking up a family, you made it my concern." The next 20 minutes unfolded like a scene from a play I was watching rather than experiencing. Eleanor alternated between tearful apologies to me and scathing reprimands to Tara. Richard's cold fury toward Jackson was punctuated by pointed questions about the misappropriated funds, questions that revealed his background as a former prosecutor. Tara crumbled under her parents' dismay, while Jackson's attempts to control the narrative fell increasingly flat as I produced document after document showing his financial duplicity. I think, I finally said during a moment of strained silence, that dinner is officially canceled. But before everyone leaves, there's one more thing. I handed Eleanor and Richard each an envelope. "What's this?" Eleanor asked cautiously. "Contact information for my attorney. She'll be reaching out to you as potential character witnesses for my custody case." I turned to Jackson. "I'm filing for divorce on Monday, full custody of Sophie, and financial restitution." "You can't do this," Jackson said, his voice hollow. "Watch me." I walked to the front door and opened it wide. "Now, I'd like you all to leave my house." One by one, they filed out. First the Callaways, with Eleanor squeezing my hand as she passed. Then Tara, unable to meet my eyes. And finally Jackson, who tried one last time. "Sarah, we need to talk about this rationally. Your things will be in storage by Monday. The access code will be sent to your attorney, not to you. Do not come back here." After closing the door behind them, I leaned against it and finally allowed myself to shake. Not with grief or rage, but with relief. The truth had been spoken. The pretense was over. And I was still standing. The weeks following that Saturday night blurred together in a whirlwind of legal meetings, tearful explanations to Sophie, and long conversations with my therapist. But through it all, I felt a strange, growing sense of lightness. As if with each piece of my old life that fell away, I could breathe a little easier. Jackson didn't fight the divorce or the custody arrangement, not after Richard Callaway personally recommended a financial forensic specialist who uncovered even more discrepancies in our accounts. His reputation at work crumbled when the senior partners learned why he was divorcing. By summer's end, he had relocated to Chicago, seeing Sophie only during scheduled visits. Tara disappeared from our social circle entirely. I heard through mutual friends that she'd moved back to Texas, living in her parents' guest house while reassessing her priorities, as Eleanor delicately put it during one of our occasional phone calls. Yes, Eleanor and I still spoke. An unexpected friendship had blossomed between us in the aftermath. Two women bound by disappointment in people we'd trusted. "You showed more dignity that night than most would have," she told me once. "I admire how you handled yourself." 6 months after that fateful dinner party, I sold our house and bought a smaller one closer to Sophie's school. On moving day, as the last box was carried in, I found myself alone in the empty living room, suddenly overwhelmed by all that had changed. I sank onto the floor and allowed myself to cry, not from sadness, but from the staggering relief of no longer living a lie, no longer being the only one not in on the secret, no longer doubting my own worth because of someone else's betrayal. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Heard you moved today. I hope your new place brings you happiness. I'm sorry for everything. T." I stared at it for a long moment before deleting it without responding. Some bridges couldn't and shouldn't be rebuilt. A year after the divorce was finalized, I was promoted to creative director at my firm. The position Jackson had always said was probably too demanding for someone with a child. Sophie was thriving in school, though she still had occasional difficult questions about why her father had moved away. "Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt the people they love," I explained when she asked. "That doesn't mean they don't love you. It just means they made mistakes. Like when I broke your blue vase and tried to hide it?" she asked. I smiled. A bit bigger than that. But yes, hiding the truth usually makes things worse. On the anniversary of that dinner party, I sat on my new patio watching the sunset, a glass of wine in hand. My mother, who had become my rock through everything, joined me. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, settling into the chair beside me. "I was just thinking about how differently things turned out than I expected," I admitted. "A year ago, I thought my life was over. Now it feels like it's finally mine. You know what I'm proudest of? Mom said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. That you didn't let their betrayal change who you are. You didn't become bitter or vengeful. You just became stronger. I wasn't sure that was entirely true. There had been dark moments, nights when rage had consumed me, days when I'd wanted to burn everything to the ground, but I'd worked through those feelings without letting them define me. Later that night, after Mom had gone home and Sophie was asleep, I found myself looking at old photos, not of Jackson or Tara, but of myself. Photos from college, from my early career, from before I'd met either of them. I barely recognized that young woman with the confident smile and ambitious eyes. Somewhere along the way, I'd lost parts of her. The betrayal had forced me to find her again, to remember who I was before I became someone's wife, someone's best friend, even someone's mother. I closed the photo album and walked to the mirror in my hallway, studying my reflection. The woman who looked back at me had lines around her eyes that hadn't been there 2 years ago, but she also had a clarity in her gaze that the younger version of me had lacked. The truth may hurt, I whispered to my reflection, but secrets destroy. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt completely,